This is Bob Sansevier. I'm here with Deputy Sports Editor John Plume and special guest appearance by Sports Editor Mike Bass. Now, Mike, it's clearly it's a Vikings town, and the Vikings are 5-0. People are excited about that. A week ago, we're talking Tuesday. A week ago today, there was great excitement. The Twins beat Detroit for the AL Central title, and now in less than a week, it's over. They're done. Going into the offseason, the big thing is can they and will they, and how much will they spend to re-sign Joe Mauer? Do you see a scenario where they, going into a new stadium with more revenue available, that they don't come up with the money to sign him?
This is going to be a very ticklish, tricky time for the Minnesota Twins and their history and their fans, because Joe Mauer is the face of this franchise. Joe Mauer is a 26-year-old catcher who's doing what no catcher has ever done in the history of baseball. 3 batting championships. There have only been 3 batting championships by catchers total before he came around. 26 years old, great defensive catcher. He's from around here. The guy can pretty much name whatever salary he has. Can you imagine going into the first year at Target Field with this hanging over their heads? You end up in a Santana type situation or Torrey Hunter. It's going to be a disaster. They have to get him. He said that it's not all about the money, but it's going to be partly about the money. We all know that. He said that it's part about winning. Will the Twins counter with him and say, well, you know, we can win more if you don't take quite as much money?
Oh, you'll know they'll come up with that.
Yeah, this is going to be ticklish. I don't know that he'll necessarily want to be the best paid player in baseball. He could certainly be one of them, if not the. They've got to get this done and fast in the offseason and get all the onus on Target Field and the good feelings coming up, because they don't want to start with this hanging over their head.
Now, John, does 10 years, $200 million do it? A longer deal might be the way to go for them.
That's a pretty good salary right there for the best catcher in baseball.
10 years from now, it might be $30 million, might be for a journeyman.
I mean, let's face it, they're gonna get the deal done somehow before they get into Target Field. The bigger issues are, what do they do at third base? What do they do at shortstop? What do they do at second base? And they need a legitimate starting pitcher and ace on this staff, and they don't have any of those things. It was amazing what they did at the end of the season with, you know, players such as Matt Tolbert and Nick Punto and Brendan Harris, and Carl Pavano pitched a great Game 3 against the Yankees. But long term, you can't win with those guys. I mean, those players they should be 50 to 60 game players a season, and that's it. They have to find legitimate starters to play those positions.
Maybe what they should do is tell Kadai to start doing his visualization things and thinking about being at third base again and try that again, because you've got guys they need to keep in the lineup, and maybe him at third and keeping Kubel out in right and Span and Delman Young in left. And then they have room for a DH.
Well, I know he does not want to play the other infield positions, but when you look at the makeup of this team, if there's any way possible to move him to one of the infield positions, second or third base, overall the team could be better. But it never worked when he was there the other time, so maybe it's just sort of a pipe dream. If it worked, that would be great.
Let's start thinking about you as a third baseman, and I would tell him, he was younger when he was put there, and he didn't have the confidence, or he had not established himself at that point. He's certainly established himself as a major league player, and you have to hit him with it's for the good of the team. I don't think he's certainly proved himself to be a for the good of the team guy. You're not going to put him at first and put Morneau at DH.
No, but you watch what they did in September, and you turn around and say, hey, we're getting 4 players back next year, essentially. Nishak, you're getting Slowey back, you're getting Morneau back, maybe Creedy back in there. Do you look at that and say, hey, when everybody's there and healthy, this team can make a legitimate run next year, and they can turn to Mauer and say, look what we've got. We don't have to make any major moves.
Well, frankly, they have. They were not embarrassed or out. It's not like the Yankees were so much better than they were. They had leads in those games. They just didn't. They couldn't close the games out. And I do think what you're saying has merit, but I agree with John. They need a bona fide starting pitcher. They thought Liriano would be that by now. He certainly isn't, and I don't know that he ever would be. They do need to work on that. And I still think you cannot go into the season with a guy with Creedy's history of injuries and say he's your third baseman. They have to fix the problem at third. And frankly, if they could figure out a way. I think Cabrera had as much to do with that run as anyone on that team did. As much as Kadai or the way Mauer was playing, because he was a spark plug for that team. I mean, there's some deficiencies there, but he does get this team. I think he was vital to what they did, and I would find a way to keep him around. So, on that, John, the man who signs my checks, Mike, thanks for coming. We'll be talking about more of these things in the weeks ahead.